Great. We'll call the meeting to order of July 28th, the planning board. Take a roll call. Peter Morton.
Here.
Chris Olney.
Here.
Gordon Brewster.
Here.
Sue Philbrook here. And Sarah Creighton's here and Mark Resnick's here. Great. Welcome, everybody. The first thing on our agenda is the approval not required for Louisa McIntosh to divide a parcel at 30 Mill Street into 2 lots. Who do we have?
Evening, Madam Chair, Planning Board members, Mark, I'm Dan Ottenheimer, the owner of Mill River Consulting, an engineering company in Gloucester. And we have hopefully be a confrontational matter for you this evening. Louisa McIntosh and her family have owned 30 Mill Street. It's a 10.5 acre parcel or so for many, many decades. Her son Luke is looking to build a house, so we are coming to you this evening for carving off a lot. So it's an A&R. The proposed lot is more than 30,000 square feet. So it has the area, it has the frontage on 2 streets, and we can explain everything both in the table and in the application to you. This is completely conforming, no variances requested.
So the only thing I'd like to say is that it's a model presentation. I wish everyone did it as well.
Mark, do you have any recommendation?
Recommend that you approve the Form A.
Okay. Any questions from anybody?
I would just want to put a couple comments on the record. I walked by the site today, the existing driveway, so the access which goes with the frontage is flat. There are no topography issues. There's plenty of room, almost 45 feet from the driveway to the nearest corner. So to me, it's evident it should be approved.
Is that a motion?
Yes, so moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, the motion is to endorse the approval of Derek and Louisa McIntosh at 30 Mill Street, Manchester by the Sea. Plan dated July 14th. For 30 Mill Street, map 37, lot 22. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, thank you. If you guys have your plans, why don't you pass them to me and I can endorse them. Well, you can pick them up at Mark's office. I'll
Okay.
do that after the meeting.
Catch up with you during the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, then we might as well set them, then they have them back.
It took longer to draw the yellow and the green on it.
Than to make that presentation.
Right.
All right, wonderful.
All right.
Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Just call ahead.
Okay,
Sure.
Okay, great.
thank you.
Next, downtown. Kathy, welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
And we have John from the select board and, Steve from downtown improvement. So Kathy's going to lead our discussion about what next.
So I thought this could be a kind of working discussion with the planning board and the downtown improvement committee representatives, because I was tasked to help facilitate the downtown forum visioning workshop to help articulate a vision, as well as look at some short-term action steps and things that the planning board and the downtown improvement committee and the town could do to improve and enhance downtown. And we also did a series of listening sessions. So I'm just gonna pass this out. And I see it as a draft working document, and I thought we'd kind of walk through it and just go from there. And I really see this needing to be a discussion. But in, the master plan, which you all worked on, or those who were active in the planning board, in 2016, 2017, 18, with MAPC, articulated that the goal and vision for downtown was to be a dynamic downtown by 2027. And I think some of the feedback at the visioning workshop said, we're not really there yet. That sounds like a nice idea. Some people, and when we asked them what a dynamic downtown meant, they said, can it be dynamic? They looking at it very much a future tense thing. So I think fine tuning the vision to be a little more detailed, but also lofty and future oriented. In terms, people really, when we talked in all the listening groups and came through the visioning workshop, really value downtown Manchester as a really critical and important part. It's the heart of Manchester. It's walkable, it's social, it's your history. And I think all those things need to be drawn in, and people talked about mixed use. So I think articulating the vision as the vision for downtown Manchester is a dynamic, lively, walkable, mixed use, commercial, civic, social, and cultural center with the harbor, the train, the historic district, serving people of all ages who live and work in the Manchester area. So I think there was a pretty strong message from the visioning workshop that people were comfortable with not just serving Manchester residents, but the larger area. People recognize that there are visitors to the area. You have, your master plan says you have over 4,000 visitors to Singing Beach. So embracing that, maybe you clearly don't want to be, quote, a tourist destination with the honky tonk, but recognizing that's part of your market. And I think this vision statement may go towards that direction. But I think there's also a secondary part, which is the next paragraph on the first page, is that to realize these aspirations for downtown, we, the Manchester community, will need to add a little spice, to borrow some words from the workshop, to downtown, welcome new users and patrons, work together, business, property owners, and residents on change, improvements, and resiliency. I think it's really important to recognize that having a stronger downtown is not just a business owner's issue. It's not just a town issue or a governmental. It's all everyone working together. And I think that's important to articulate, because too often you get into, well, why isn't the town doing it? Or why isn't the businesses doing it? But we all have to work on it. So I wanted to try and embrace this. So that's a draft. So any thoughts, reactions? Is something missing?
So when you say mixed use commercial, the mixed is residential with commercial, or should we add residential as a specific thing?
I think I think that's up for kind of discussion, because mixed use commercial would imply that there is at least commercial as an aspect of the project, whereas mixed use residential, you could have nonprofit uses, government uses, and housing, which maybe you want, but I wasn't sure. I know people sounded like they really wanted to maintain retail and commercial on the ground level, but we're comfortable with including housing as part of the mix. And you certainly, with MBTA zoning, adopted regulations that bring housing into downtown in a much more concentrated perspective. So having active first floors that would include commercial. So I think that's a nuance, and I think it could go either way, frankly.
To Chris's point though, shouldn't it have residential measured, shown somewhere on here?
Well, I wasn't trying, you could. That's where I think mixed use fits in. I don't think you're trying to be a residential center per se. You're wanting to maintain the commercial focus, so that's why I didn't highlight residential. I figured it was encompassed in mixed use. But I think when we did the exercise on where is downtown Manchester? With the planning board, and then we did it at the workshop. I think people were kind of one of a couple perspectives. Some people drew it very tightly, and it was just the business district. And other people drew it so it included Mascanoma Park. It went up to Norwood and where the parking area is by the cemetery. It included, you know, obviously, everyone included town hall. But the broader definition seemed that people are thinking downtown as a neighborhood. As compared to just strictly a commercial business district. So I think there's two perspectives. And I think one of the notes on one of the visioning work, small groups said, well, we really have three areas in downtown, and I would concur with that. You have kind of the business area, you have kind of the civic, institutional area, I would use the word institutional, and you have areas that are more residential and open space or harbor. So I think you have a compact downtown, but for a community your size, it's pretty big in terms of how it stretches. So you kind of have sub areas within the downtown, and you could define that as a neighborhood. So I think it's how you want to look at it. I would probably embrace it with your kind of current definition of downtown, recognizing that the commercial core is really centered around Crosby's. But you certainly have businesses along, you know, Beach Street's a major business street, and, you know, certainly you've got folks on, you know, businesses on Central and Washington that are important. And some.
One of the takeaways I had from the forum was that I did not hear a single person say they wanted it to be all residential.
Correct.
It was presumed that it would have, all the discussion was about commercial and active community uses. So I didn't hear anybody say, let's get rid of those. Let's, you know, I think it was assumed.
I think you're right, and I think so. I think residential is kind of the newer use, so to speak. And what's new is what's, you know, all of this new again, so to speak, in terms of having mixed use. So if you want to call it out, we certainly can add that.
Right, but I also think it was at the street level that everybody was talking about, rather than a 3-story commercial enterprise.
I think people were comfortable with current scale,
Yes.
which includes single story and 2-story and 2.5 story.
I have a question for you about commercial and what commercial means. And I came away from the session with the notion that people were thinking about it more as restaurants and shops versus office space. And I'm curious about whether that impression is what when you looked at people's remarks. And
I have a couple reactions to that. One, I think in the vision statement, you want to keep it broad and flexible in terms of specifics about what people were perceiving as commercial. I think you're right. When people are talking about active commercial uses, they're generally talking about retail and restaurants. But increasingly you have service businesses or cultural uses. People also talked about entertainment and cultural. So I think I did insert the term social and cultural because people call for gathering space, people call for arts and music, some people wanted dancing. But that option, and you have cultural institutions already with the library and the museum. But I think people are also looking at maybe there's a place to go here, a quintet, or,
Yeah.
or a band, and, that perhaps could be accommodated with existing uses, but it's not been really called out as part of what you've been talking about in terms of downtown, so that's why I inserted social and cultural in the draft. So I think you're right that people were thinking that active restaurant retail piece. And, the other thing about offices often, real estate is kind of an office, insurance is kind of an office. So there are some, doctors' offices are offices or medical offices, accountants and professional services that you could find in a downtown. Might be appropriate, but might not be ideal for the ground level. They might be good at, the side of a building, at not the street frontage, but maybe but on the first floor, farther back, might be okay for second floor. But the vision is kind of a big global meta piece. Whereas when we're talking about uses, you may want to fine tune your use case. So that, I thought we'd first talk about the vision statement in a paragraph, and, you certainly might want to, chew on it a little bit and think about it overnight, and talk amongst yourselves more informally. But I think the comments and clarifications about mixed use, that's a good point. Any other kind of, did I hit the right tone? Is something missing?
It's all right, Tom.
So the only thing that I think is missing, you have people of all ages who live and work in the Manchester area. In the summer, we have people who visit, and most of them just visit for the day. And I don't see them in the people who are served. And so that's just
People have
something to
different
talk about.
definitions of the Manchester area. I did not get the impression, though you may want to, that people want to do tourism marketing. But I think people are you already have visitors that are coming a distance. The definition of a tourist in, the hospitality tourism industry and planning circles is someone who travels at least 50 miles. And it's at least a day trip or stays overnight.
But what about people who are just visiting for the day?
That could, I think that's probably, some people would say Boston is part of the Manchester area, so.
Okay,
I don't think it would be bad to put who live, work and visit in the Manchester area, just add in the word
Okay,
visit.
that's fine, that's a good.
That would be
that's
my-
good. This needs to be your vision statement, not the Catherine K vision statement. It needs to be the downtown Manchester, in Manchester community. So let's go to page 2 if we're kind of okay with, and if you have thoughts later on about the vision statement,
We didn't email this to me, did you?
I will email. No,
I was gonna
haven't
share it.
Mailed it out.
Oh, I was gonna share it.
It's all draft,
I
so,
might be able to take a picture and share it. Hold on.
Yeah, for people that are on Zoom, is there anything to look at? Slides, anything?
No, we're, I'm seeing if I can take a picture of it.
That's very kind.
So one, and I apologize, I focused more on the work plan than doing slides, so. The next page really identifies some recommendations based on the visioning and workshop and discussion on principally short-term action plans. So to the left, if it's ST, that's short-term. I've used short-term as anywhere from immediate to the next 18 to 24 months. So you gotta, move fairly quickly. Midterm would probably be 18 months to 3 or 4 years. So that some people think of that as short term, but I kind of differentiate the two. So I grouped them into 5 major categories. One was promotion and marketing, land use and zoning, parking came up several times, business recruitment and development, and placemaking and physical improvements. Which kind of goes somewhat to thinking about what I mentioned about the Main Street approach of looking at organization, design, promotion and marketing, as well as economic vitality. So I tried to hit all those issues. And the following pages that are in tiny print, and I will send the larger print on 11 by 17 version to you by email, really details each of these, with some of the rationale, some initial steps, what a metric or a key performance indicator might be, some successful examples. I left blank the lead entity, except if it was clear that was a planning board item like zoning. And did a very broad cost information piece. But I think a key issue is really to determine who is the lead entity, because on some of these things like promotion and marketing, who's taking the lead? And many people, whether during the listening session or at the forum, talked about the need for communication, getting the story that there are businesses and open for business and come and visit and shop. That whole need of promotion and marketing. Whose portfolio is that? Is it the merchants? Is it as a group? Is it, what's the role of the town, the planning board, the downtown improvement committee? You don't have a downtown association that I'm aware of. And so at this point, someone needs to kind of take the lead. And I think that's a really important thing that the Downtown Improvement Committee and Planning Board, you have to put your heads together on each of these. Is like, is there a point person? And you can't put it all on Mark because he's got enough work. You might want to give him some of these things, but it's too easy to say, oh, that's staff. Well, let's figure out who it is, and who's gonna review it, because I think with any work plan, you're gonna need to look at this once a month or at least once a quarter and say, are we making progress?
Just on that point, subject to further guidance from our elected leaders, we've been sitting down with the chamber and working on the concept of the business development district, which is and in larger towns is a separate tax base.
Right, it's a business improvement district.
Yeah, so, but we're at this point, we're just imagining us as a volunteer business improvement district and working towards specifically finding matching commercial properties with attractive businesses that we think would be welcome in town. We're in the very early stages.
That's good.
Well, we're trying to help. Whatever.
Glad to hear that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think part of that, and I would say one is, there are 4 things identified as part of promotion and marketing. And some of these are basics. One is creating an annual promotion calendar. What, and what was interesting is many of the small groups at the visiting workshop talked about how you've got the summer festival and the 4th of July. And then you've got, Halloween. And people really like Santa coming in on the boat and the tree lighting. So in terms of special events and people coming to downtown, you're capitalizing on the summer with Singing Beach and, the 4th of July and your festival that's next weekend. And you've got Halloween covered and you've got Christmas covered. So that you've got stuff from, late June to December. The first 6 months of the year, there's no real promotion going on from a business district perspective. It's hard to tell businesses like, it's too bad that you guys survive on 2 or 3 months of high income when we're not doing any marketing January through June. So thinking through a promotions calendar and adding another event, whether that's a winter event, whether that's something about Valentine's Day, something about getting ready for spring. There's one community, Chatham does an Easter egg roll, but then you visit businesses to identify where the 4 golden eggs are hidden. But that gets people in the door. And once people get in the door, they sometimes buy, or at least they become more aware. So that's an example of a special event with a retail tie-in. So you need something like that during the first 6 months. And doing a promotion calendar kind of like, doesn't mean this committee has to do it, but there's gotta be, whether it's the businesses or some group or businesses in partnership with residents, you need, the chamber, you need some promotion in between winter and spring. It could be something that involves the library and the museum. I know one community does literary lectures in February and they invite authors to come and they do tie-ins where authors, they have major events like at the library and other places in their downtown. And, authors also visit businesses. You have a bookstore, you have a library, you have a museum, you've got meeting spaces. That might be a way to do a non-traditional. Maybe it's music. There's lots of different ways to do it. But you've got to find what's best and where the creative juices are in Manchester. But that's why I think a promotion calendar and a winter early spring event with retail times is really important. Because we can talk about changing zoning and doing all this, but we gotta also make cash registers right. Because that's, and that helps recruit businesses. Was your existing businesses, when they prosper, they're your best salespeople for recruitment.
I got a question. So you mentioned the calendar and you say nothing's going on January to June.
And I be missing something, so.
I beg to differ. I think the
Okay.
problem is you can't go to one place and say, this is what's going on. The library has a program,
Right.
lots of different programs. The museum has lots of different programs. The cultural, council would have various things. There are things that go on that are not weather dependent per se, like the summer.
So
It's
maybe
just
we
that-
need to-
Yeah, you need to consolidate that so people could say, I'm coming here for the day, what's going on? And there are things that are going on, but you gotta look 5 different places.
Year 2, there was a skating rink on
Well,
Mascanoma.
that's an excellent thing. Past 2 years, I'm a big fan of skating. I don't know why it didn't get out the last 2 years. It should be an annual, like every March. Lay out a skating, we have an artificial skating rink, we put in Mascanoma.
About this.
It works.
But your point leads to one of the other things. Have a master calendar. And that then if you had a downtown website and everything on it, And you can automate that so that someone doesn't have to add it. If someone wants to add it, they add the information in and populates your calendar. So, I suspected if people didn't go to, go to sleep in January, February, March, that there was probably stuff going on, but we have to kind of like come to downtown. There's a lot going on because people who aren't connected and hooked in may not be aware. As you say, you gotta look 5 different places. So having that, having a downtown website, that could be a web page to start off with as part of the town, if the town's agreeable. Maybe it's getting the chamber to add a web page that's for downtown, or setting up your own web page, which if you had a downtown improvement, association, you probably would be doing. But then doing that calendar so that it's a community service, and it also reinforces what's going on. And also businesses then can say, well, I'm doing an event, or because one of the things with experiential marketing, you want businesses, whether it's a tasting at one of the liquor stores, or they're having, the hardware store saying, okay, this is what you need to do to kind of get ready for cold weather, in terms of weatherization or other tips, that are related to home improvement or other such things, or getting ready for spring gardens. Those are types of things that can all be added to a website. But you don't have to do all the programming.
Yeah.
You have partners who do all the programming, but capturing that information so it's part of what downtown is and brings more people. And if someone is doing a big event, it's like, oh, you have Valentine's Day, then maybe encourage, it's Valentine's all week, so-and-so's doing this thing. You might have, you could have a, winter stroll, just like people have Christmas strolls, so people get in and get out around downtown.
I think we can all think of ways that, the Rotunda exhibit that just happened, the art exhibit, it was fabulous, but none of the stores were open. And here we were walking around to the store windows to look in their window at the art that was in there. So, it was kind of just done by the Council on Art, or the Art Council, whatever it was, which was great. But to your point, if we had someone who was,
It's be a fabulous event, because it draws people, you have a lot of good window display in most of the businesses.
Yeah.
But also then, helping tell the story and doing, well, we're going, maybe everyone stays open another hour and a half that one evening, kicking off Art and Windows Week off.
I have a question.
Gar over in the corner.
Other towns my name is Gar. Other towns are, like Chatham, are very successful at this. They obviously figured it out. What is the mode that they use to pull together this information? Have the annual promotion calendar. Let's copy somebody who seems to know what they're doing. So what are the modes that we might consider?
Well, I'm not sure let me try and answer the question and come back if I don't really hit it completely. So in terms of, I think it's helpful to look at the National Main Street Center's kind of Main Street framework that many communities have worked with or done takeoffs on. And the National Main Street Center has been working to revitalize town centers and small downtowns for the last 50 years. So that's a pretty tried and true. And that's where they look at promotion and marketing, design, which could be, physical improvements, facades, signage, information, kind of the physical built environment, as well as open space. Organization, sometimes that's policy, making sure you have a public-private partnership partnering with your chamber, partnering, getting businesses involved, getting residents involved, getting town government involved, maybe regional entities. But, you know, just like, the downtown improvement committee is talking to the chamber, maybe we could develop a business improvement district on a volunteer basis. That's kind of something that falls under organization. Then also economic vitality. It's important to understand the market considerations, which I covered a bit at the downtown forum. But then also, what are your goals? You know, clearly filling vacancies is an important goal right now in Manchester. So some of that is, you know, whether that's a site finder, so if people are interested, they can find a list of, you know, a list of vacant spaces. Maybe it's getting technical assistance and helping grow businesses. Maybe it's pop-ups, having a recruitment package, or a combination thereof. Many communities do 1, 2, or 3 things. It's important to kind of look at design, organization, promotion, and economic restructuring, all do a little bit continuously. So that's kind of the general framework.
I'm
Let's
curious, sorry to interrupt, but I was really saying, other towns seem to be able to have a program that works. Which town should we copy?
Well, I think you gotta chart your own way, but I'll take Chatham, for example, since we mentioned it. Chatham has a Chamber of Commerce. They also have, it's the Chamber of Commerce and the Chatham Merchants Association. They've also had a staff position where they've had someone focused on downtown, on town government. It's been in their planning department. But they, you know, it's top. Chatham's a similar sized community as Manchester. I know they had someone full-time for a while who a major part of her portfolio was looking at downtown. So there was staff time and resources put into that. So that's one example. I think in terms of like the downtown business improvement districts, people have used that as a way to kind of provide a cash flow that to help supplement existing services from the town or municipality. Certainly during COVID, those communities that had a formal business improvement district were able to pivot more quickly and provide direct assistance to their local businesses. Those who were more voluntary were slower to react. I think
Volunteer may be a problem because, you know, if the volunteer groups change every 2 years, it's hard to keep the continuity.
And stability.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the consistency and stability. So one of the issues is all finding revenue. So business improvement districts are one way to generate revenue, either voluntary or when it's formalized. Some communities have done parking benefit districts if they collect parking revenue. The state has enabling legislation that you can create a parking benefit district and then direct that for improvements within the given district and not just to the general fund. But that means you have to have parking fees. So, yeah. Go.
So I just had a thought, Jody Morse, 11 Jersey Lane. So I had a thought about the whole idea of marketing and promotion, like who's going to do that? I think one of the things we do have here in Manchester, we have an active newspaper, which a lot of towns don't have. And Erica Brown does these inserts where she obviously gets advertising. It's a revenue generator for her, which is great. But we should have a tie-in. So she did one in the spring, and it was all about, you know, planting and gardening and spring cleaning and all this kind of stuff. And I don't think there was really any tie-in. They all paid to put ads in the paper, but maybe putting an event around that. So you know, utilizing and leveraging the efforts that our newspaper does would be.
Yeah, no, I think you make an excellent point, and I'm not saying there aren't resources in Manchester or both governmental and volunteers and people and private sector entities. But it's kind of like doing that gardening well, where you can get bases for gardens at a variety of stores. You can also get, gardening gloves, whether it's at the hardware store or some of the other stores. There's books about gardening, kind of like, that could be a spring gardening kickoff.
That's what I'm saying. She's already doing the promotion. We don't have an event. So that could be a good way of putting those. things
Yeah,
together.
so
I think it's about people,
facilitating that tie-in is a great idea.
it's about people seeing and seeing that they should, I mean, it's up to, if I'm holding an event, it's up to me to put it in the Cricket. And that's one of the challenges.
Well, and that's why you need to have a
How
committee,
to.
a group, whatever.
So, I want to go back to that. Who's gonna take the ball and run with it here? And it seems to me there are two possibilities, one short-term and one longer. We've had a pretty good experience with a task force that redid the zoning for the MBTA. Maybe a task force can get this thing going, but I think the better answer is to reimagine the DIP program. Because they're already doing some of this, they seem to be concentrating so far in physical improvements. But maybe now it looks like, Steve, you're sort of broadening your view.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if that were expanded and formalized in some way, and one of the things about the DIP that is very disappointing, there's no merchants, I don't think, on it. And
No, Jim Brown.
That's been a struggle we've been working on. The
Yeah.
merchants are busy. We're lucky to get the chamber.
well, I think that's a real lack of something that we need to
Yeah,
fix.
the select board has invited us to redraw our charter, which is underway this month.
Well, I think you should make it as broad and powerful as you can.
Thank you for your confidence.
I think he just assigned it all to
I just
you.
signed the whole thing.
Christian involvement is not an unusual problem. It's not unique to Manchester. You've got over 2,000 households in Manchester, but you only have 47 businesses in downtown. So if percentage wise, you have more people, residents tend to participate more than businesses, small businesses, they do their billing and ordering and payment late at night. So they're stretched often. So getting some involvement, maybe it's a property owner. Sometimes it's, a son or daughter or parent of the active business manager, who's familiar with the business, can help out. It's not easy.
So I'm gonna just pause for 1 second because Tony Barletta snuck in. He's our new town administrator, so I wanted to introduce him if people haven't met him. Welcome to the planning board. Thank you for coming. We also have two comments from people who have been very active on this issue on our audience. So Jim Brown, you want to unmute and
Thank you very much. Tony, welcome aboard. Jim Brown, 43 Pond Street, Essex, Mass, but also 11 Beach Street, Manchester. I was an active member of the DIP and also try to attend those meetings, both as a representative of the local businesses and the Chamber of Commerce. We also have another member of the Chamber, Colleen, who attends as many of those as she can. I don't think she's missed one in a little while. And I think it's really important. It is challenging to get the actual business owners, but I have a strong connection with all of them. And as I'm working with Steve, I relay that information. And then the second point I want to make is I'm not sure who was talking at the time, but I do think this is an excellent opportunity for the DIP to reposition itself, to kind of add some of the stuff we talked about in terms of promoting and mapping and those sort of things. So I think the DIP is a great great resource for that.
Great, thanks, Jim. Marlene, you have your hand up?
I did. Thank you so much. Marlene Dolan, 19 Woodcrest Road, Manchester, on the DIP, happily. Two comments. First, thank you so much for putting this together there. It's a very good plan with a good order of operations and brings out a couple of big points that I think a lot of us have been thinking about. There is something, just as a person, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years, Steve, that I've been on the committee, but during that time, I've led 2 different efforts, one on parking and one on signage. And I came away from both of those with the following feedback to myself and to the town, which I've shared, but also an idea. And so the parking study was extensive. We also got involvement from the Mass State government, and it was, surveys and it was door to door and blah blah. We found out a lot about parking, and essentially what we found out was weekends and in summer, the parking is a problem for some. 2, most people define parking problem as not being able to park in front of their business. 3, there are spots, there's ample room, according to the way the survey ran, for people to park around town for the most part. And I don't know how many of you drive around and try to find parking. The only thing I have a problem with is finding parking when I go to Laughing Gull. Other than that, not a problem, but I'm just being lazy. So that's one on the parking, but nobody seems to remember that or know that. So where would that lie? That's number 1. 2, you talked about a parking map. I put together an entire parking website. I did it with Tiffany. It was marvelous. I don't know if anybody is keeping it updated, that, and there are things that have changed. That's the Scouts is now not the Scouts. It's now $25, not $30. It would be great there to get that. So things kind of like, as I said, we come up with a committee idea, we work it to the bone, we put the implementation in, and then over time it wears itself out because other things are going on. The final point I'll make is with the signage. That did take a long time. It's over. There are a limited number of signs in. It turns out that the typing is too small, unfortunately, and will need to be improved. However, some of the signs are being blocked. I'm not sure how they got put where they were. And ultimately, what I came to the conclusion of is the DPW, which is part and parcel of all that, is so overwhelmed with other work that they don't have the bandwidth to put this together. And being a project manager and running a consulting firm for many years, somebody on the inside needs to manage capacity. And that is all the capacity coming in from all these committees, who is not only a capacity manager, but also an integrator of all these different committees and social institutions. That job, I think, should be put in place prior to us just loading up all these poor departments with more to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlene.
Marlene has been one of our great contributors, so we're a debt of gratitude.
And I just looked up the where to park in Manchester, which is easy to find on the website.
I just searched
So
for it.
it may not be where people would go to look for it, but to Marlene's point. Couple other comments, Kathy Bellata. She's select board.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yeah, no, I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Marlene said. The parking studies, as an example, there were 2 of them that were brought together. It was at least a couple of years ago, if not 3 years ago, and we just saw the implementation of one of their near-term ideas, which was to paint lines along Central Street and Union. You may have seen that come up, I think it was last week. So I agree with Marlene that it's taking too long to implement agreed upon solutions after the teams or committees come up with a solution, bring it to the planning board, bring it to the select board. We're all in agreement and it just takes too long to implement. So I just wanted to support Marlene in that commentary, because we're asking people to volunteer their time. And then when it takes years to see their solutions come to fruition, it's very disheartening, and it makes it difficult for us to continue to get people to participate. Thank you.
For those that don't know, I just mentioned that Kathy is our liaison with the select board and has greatly facilitated our work since that system was set up.
Great. Jim, another comment, and then I want to make
Yeah,
sure
so
we
just
get.
quickly, the chamber recently bought or paid for an app called MapMe, and we've just completed it. And I don't know if you're interested in me sharing my screen for a second. I've got it up, but it allows you to open up with a QR code. Our plans are to have posters at all of the businesses and maybe something down at the train station and where the boats get off. You can select public bathrooms and it highlights bathrooms on the map. You can select parking, it highlights the parking areas on the map. It's really quite cool, and we're ready to launch this.
And
I have-
your
if
co-host,
anyone's
you should be able to
interested in
share
seeing
it briefly.
Okay.
So Jim, this is Peter Morton. How you doing?
Yeah.
So that sounds to me like on that app, you could easily add events to it.
So I'm not sure about that. That's an excellent question. But if you look at this right now, you can see if I click on parking, it highlights the parking areas. And all I have to do is click on that and it gives you a brief description. If there's a website, I also put down the street parking in the center of town. The path, I showed the path. If you look at Central Street, talks about 2-hour visitor parking available. So we have that. If you click public restrooms, it shows you Tux Point, Bravo by the Sea, and Dunkin' Donuts, and then the town hall. If you unclick, it has all of
Jim,
them. I
this
have
is
the hands
terrific,
on there,
terrific work. Love it.
right? Transportation, so we have.
So
Okay.
Jim, is the chamber
functional-
responsible for this?
Sounds
Yes.
I'm sorry, yeah, so the chamber started it, we bought the app, and then our IT person put basically what she could off of Google Maps, and then I went in and spent a few hours on it over the last week and pretty much put this together.
Great.
And,
Nice, it's terrific.
think that illustrates the importance of partnerships, so thank you for showing that. And I think it also, what Kathy was saying really speaks to think about who's the designated person. Many people volunteer in town on policy and thinking through the policy and improvement issues, but then you gotta actualize it. And I think that's where, who's the implementation team, who's the implementation point person? It can be, staff can play an important role, but we can't keep adding everything to the town manager's plate and the planning director's plate. Not to say that they shouldn't participate, but that's one of your weak links. Because you're incredibly bright, you've developed some great policies. We've looked at the parking study, which one of the things I said, let's take out that parking study and implement a recommendation, pick one, do it. And that's where kind of the Achilles heel is. So thinking through, how are we gonna implement, who's reviewing, implementing? That's why I did a one pager, so you can say, what's the status? And you can just take it out planning board meeting, okay. Someone doing this? Have we heard from them? We gotta hold each other accountable.
So can we jump to the land use and zoning?
Absolutely.
If you just sit and that you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, but this way I can see everyone.
Yes, okay. But I want to make sure that we know whether we can have short
Bread
term.
and butter, so to speak, of the planning board I identified a couple short-term as well as what I think might be a little, what I would call midterm. One was, people keep calling for mixed use. Your zoning list of uses don't allow mixed use. You need to change your zoning, your use table.
Yeah.
You might want to, I know there's been a suggestion to maybe think about it as an overlay or a use table just for the downtown area within the general district, because you might not be ready for the whole general district. And it might not be a good thing, because people haven't looked at it for that, but for downtown, people have been talking about mixed use, so time to do it. And that would help facilitate development. The other issue is requiring an active first floor use, which, we talked about a little earlier. There's some different strategies. One of the things, on several recent initiatives, I've noticed that the commercial real estate organization, NAIOP, as well as some of the other real estate organizations in Greater Boston, have come out against requiring commercial on the ground floor. And the reason is that it's very difficult to pencil out commercial uses on the ground floor, particularly in neighborhood business districts. As in some places, there's too much retail. So that what's happening is that there's mixed use buildings with vacant ground floors. So it just makes everything look more vacant, so we're not necessarily solving the problem. And part of that is because people have made entire corridors mixed use, whereas it should be concentrated like you're trying to concentrate in your downtown area. So I just bring it up so you think it through. One solution might be requiring the first 30 or 40 foot of depth of a building as active use, retail, restaurant. It could be more, but it could also allow for a different use in the back half. It could also allow for a podium style building that has it. Does everyone know what a podium style building is?
No, and could you also detail what is and is not an active use?
Okay, good questions. So an active use is typically perceived as retail or restaurants or some kind of use where people are coming in on a regular basis. And, so there could be some nonprofit art uses, like galleries or community center type uses that are active because people are coming in and out every day. But what you want is also transparent windows, so it's not like a wall. So when some businesses, either put blinds or signage that basically make it, you can't see inside. That's that creates a virtual, a visual wall. So it's less interesting, there's less transparency. So I think that contributes to an inactive use. So typically restaurants, retail, but you also have some civic, social, nonprofit issues that fall into that as well. Generally, offices are not typically viewed as active uses. I know childcare was mentioned as a desired need in the downtown with one of the groups. That's probably not a use that you put in the core area, but you might put in and around downtown because it's a good use near the train station. People can drop off and pick up their kids if they're working in town and taking the train. In some ways, having kids and a lot of people coming and going in early in the morning and late in the afternoon could be construed as an active use. But in an ideal world, you would put that at your 100% corner. You would put it within, but not in the not in the the center point area. So I think I tried to answer that.
ODM,
Podium style buildings, is basically a commercial build, it could be commercial or residential, and it's kind of, in essence, built on stilts, for lack of a better term, so that you often find parking underneath, and so that, but you can have parking underneath in the rear, but you could have active first floor uses seeing the frontage. So on small lots, when you have parking requirements, people often will go up, put the parking on the surface level because it's the most economical way to buy parking, build a frame, so it's kind of like a building on stilts. You park underneath, and the commercial or residential use is raised.
The question up here.
I just have a comment about the word require. We have 3 apartment buildings, one in Quincy, 300 units, one in Cambridge, 310 units, one in Boston, 130 units, required by the municipalities to put retail in the first floor. It has been torture. There is no rent low enough to get these retail. Now, we've gotten, then we've subsidized, we've given money to people who wanted to do all sorts of shops. And knock on wood, they're all leased. I encourage the planning board to not use the word require. I love the word allow instead of require. If you require IKEA, that's absurd, but if you require a furniture store in the first floor of a given block, you're basically, it's not good for the folks that own the buildings, okay?
Well, you're illustrating the problem I was referencing.
It's a tough one, but to require retail is a misnomer. You're kidding yourselves. Allow retail, great. Allow retail. And if the market has a need, that's the way the free enterprise system works, you know? And I'm a communist myself, but that's okay. I still believe in free enterprise. So I really think that requiring uses should be not done. Allow uses is a great way to.
Well, I know your pain because I've seen it in many examples. I think you've got to look at how large the area is. And all 3 of your examples, there is a lot of, all 3 communities are over retail. In a lot of ways. And what happens is that when people wonder why rents are higher, you know you're gonna have vacant space, so you have to make it up because
The
rents go
the
up.
residential rents are good. So it's not like we're penalizing retailers to subsidize empty space. We're just trying to get people
No,
to open a business, that's all.
so I understand the argument about the requiring of an active use or even a commercial use, active or inactive, office. On the flip side, I think what we're hearing from the community is that they want that vibrancy what I'm hearing from the market is that if you don't require it in this market, we may get conversions to residential, up and down the street, and then it's gone. And so the dilemma here is.
Well, that's why I mentioned only doing maybe 30 or 40 feet.
Right,
So
And then the other thing is
addresses
what
kind
can
of
we,
both Issues, and I
Yeah.
wanted you to be aware of that
Yeah.
challenge.
Well, there's-
I didn't realize you were gonna have a voice here expressing the pain.
but, it seems to me that that once it's gone, it's gone. And if we particularly focus on those areas or that area where there's already, active uses on the first floor.
Well,
Then
that's
we,
also one of the reasons to keep the area in Manchester where retail can be located very
Tight.
compact. So that those who are developing within that area have a reasonable opportunity to get an active use. And it's why you may not want to require the entire floor plate. I understand why you want to allow, I mean, but I think there's a balancing act that you gotta be, I bring up the issue from the real estate community, just so you're aware of it. You know, and not blindsided, but it is, if you don't require it, you don't get it.
Here's a question. So is there data available? And Jim, I don't know whether the chamber has this about commercial vacancy rate in Manchester. It'd be
So I
interesting to
can
know.
tell you, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You know, when I looked at your rapid recovery plan from 2021, so we were in the midst of the pandemic, it said you had 2 commercial vacancies. And you have more than that today, so it's gone upward. That's not surprising. Since I think there were people who kind of survived the pandemic and then exhaled and said, I'm either selling or closing.
yeah, we have,
But I think you also have some generational transitions where people are, you know, store owners are getting retirement age, and you gotta think about who's the next generation who's gonna take it on.
yeah.
Okay,
Jim, you had some
something-
feedback on probably the require and the allow and
Yeah,
the
exactly.
rate.
I'd like to just echo what Gar said. If you mandate retail on the first level front, you're gonna have empty spaces. And I can tell you, I work really, really hard at having a good mix of businesses, and it's not easy at all. We're
And you do a
fortunate-
great job, Jim. You do a great job.
It's not easy, and we're fortunate to have some larger businesses like the banks and the supermarket that help us kind of subsidize the retail. So, you know, so businesses like Mari's, 50-year plus business. We just got Style Snoop in downtown area. They struggle. They had a long year last year. It's really brutal, and it's challenging for us to collect rents from businesses like that, collect decent rents. You know, I don't want them going out of business. It's kind of a partnership, but we don't make a lot of money off of those businesses. And I think if you mandate that would be a big mistake. I think a better approach is to work with the property owners and maybe incentivize us or help us do that. The regulations, we're always seeing new regulations, particularly in Massachusetts. I just get hit with this small energy building, large building energy reporting regulation now that's part of the windmill thing. There's a lot of stuff we do behind the scenes that are just regulation driven. There's a lot of cost. Our fire systems we're inspecting all the time and repairing, and it's unbelievable. And I think your better bet is just to work with the business owners like myself and the property owners and say, okay, let's do our best to keep a variety of businesses. And I've had an empty space behind Cape Ann Savings Bank right now for 4 or 5 months. I'm working with a chiropractor right now. I think that would be a great business back there. We did have the yoga studio, which was one of my favorite businesses. We lost that during COVID, and I've been unable to get something like that. We had the massage therapist was up above behind the bank, and that she did a lot of business there, and it's really hard now to get a mix of businesses like that. If you mandate it though, you're just going to see empty spaces. It's too
So-
hard to leave spaces.
I want to push back a little bit, because in fact, what fuels retail spaces are residences. And if there are residences in the downtown, they're gonna be frequenting those businesses. So if you suddenly say, well, there's no more businesses, it's just residential, there's no place for these people to go but Beverly to do their shopping. So it, in the long run, it's more complicated than that. I will say.
It
though-
is, but you have to, so what you have to do is, first of all, you have to allow mixed use, allow residential upstairs. I'm grandfathered in, so most of my businesses are mixed use with apartments upstairs. I have
Yeah.
no problem filling apartments and a long list of people that want to get in there. But it's the businesses downstairs that are just challenging to maintain those businesses and keep them in there.
So the Cape Cod model downtown bylaw recommends for active commercial uses on the first floor and residential on the first floor with a special permit. So there is a way out. And if the owner just demonstrates that it's impossible to support a retail space, get a special permit and put in a residence.
Yeah, totally.
I think this, obviously, it's generating a lot of discussion, and I think the goal is to have active retail restaurant uses. But it's, how do we get that? And also allow people to return.
Yeah, one of the things we've been brainstorming on is the idea of having a recruitment of businesses. In the short term, we've been brainstorming about businesses that would make it on a 4-season basis with local clientele that are not competitive with anything in town and don't rely on single patrons between 20 and 40 years old, because there's nobody like that.
There's very few people.
Yeah, all right. But my point is, we've identified types of businesses. And Jim and I have been talking about reaching out to, one favorite is an Asian takeout restaurant. We've identified several Asian takeout chains or small regional groups that have nothing between Beverly, Gloucester and Ipswich. And we would reach out to them and see if they would have an interest. In the longer term, we might be able to do some market surveys or something like that and be more formal about it. But it seems to me that kind of a proactive or curated business recruitment effort over time could be something that would be part of, could go some distance towards talking about, or towards addressing the issue that Gar and Jim are raising here.
Tony, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, how has the approach changed since COVID? I imagine there was, a playbook of how to approach this pre-COVID. You have to factor different things in. There's a lot of small businesses didn't survive the pandemic, and what people want or what has the ability to survive now may be different than prior to the pandemic. So
Well, I think there's a couple things. So let me kind of just try. I think one of the things that has happened since COVID is that during COVID, we kind of gave outdoor dining carte blanche. And in some communities, that's been rolled back. But people still want that al fresco, outdoor dining, outdoor gathering. So kind of, that's almost now expected. So that's kind of a switch. There's certainly much more delivery and takeout. For many restaurants, their takeout is more important than the cash flow than their in dining.
Yeah.
So having, from a planning parking perspective, you need to manage the curb, as they say, so that there's pickup. So that is clearly something that has changed since COVID. In terms of retail, some of that order and pickup, and many retailers at least got some level of digital store, a digital facade, not just a bricks and mortar facade. So the notion of ordering and picking up is, and wanting that immediacy, is affected retailers at, I think the other part is, people also, because so much is on Amazon, people also are starting to want that in-person experience. And also, to try things on. And some people are wanting to avoid delivery charges. So they want that in-store experience. So inventories are are smaller since COVID. But there's kind of now a shift that people are wanting that. They want to save the money and not have to do delivery charges. So that's one of the other trends in retail. On COVID, there was a big focus on home goods and making if you were spending 24 hours at home, you wanted to be a little nicer. That's kind of shifted away from home goods to kind of personal services. So people want indulgences and taking care of themselves, whether that's dining or spas or yoga or, but also I think that whole notion of experiential retail. People can order commodity type retail on Amazon, but they, what the local retailer is either freshness or that personal relationship or an experience, whether it's the tasting, whether it's demonstrating how something works, whether it's, some people have wine and cheese nights when you're, getting your hair done, or something at the, a brew at the barber shop, that, something to kind of augment and create an experiential piece. You also, I think the other thing, since COVID is the rise of ghost kitchens, which is not an issue in Manchester. Ghost kitchens is where a restaurant is not serving, and basically it's just a kitchen for delivery services. Which is a new regulatory issue. So does that kind of help?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting.
Two questions. One is, when we think about our downtown, we have little retail, small footprint spaces. And then we have a couple of larger footprint spaces, Crosby's and the Harbor Point Collective space come to mind, and maybe there's some other that are the, So would it make sense to treat those spaces differently in terms of the require or allow question? As we think about something? That's the first question. Well, I'll let you answer that one first.
I think you're going to have a really good rationale for treating it differently. It might be somewhat scale, but it's also looking at, I would look at street frontage capacity. You really, one of your benefits is having small businesses and small spaces, because for startup businesses or small businesses, they're not having to lease out 3,000 square feet, which is kind of your standard size in commercial development, even though that's starting to shrink because people are using less space these days and using their space more efficiently. I don't have a clear answer because I want to think about it, but I also think, that issue about allow, special permit, mandate. I think it's something you're going to have to thrash out locally too.
And then the second question is, are there, besides zoning and the other things we've talked about, one thing that you don't have on your list, I don't think, are sort of the policy. Jim mentioned that, that you can't affect state legislation, but the ease at which somebody can get a liquor license or other kinds of municipal incentives or, lack of disincentive, simplifying, what are the things that we should pay attention to?
I didn't address the liquor issue.
No.
You're right, and that's not to say you don't need it. I'm not clear how many licenses you now have, and if you have any that you haven't awarded out. The legislature has allowed home rule petitions on providing additional, licenses particularly in the case of downtown revitalization. And I'm not up on the latest liquor laws, or licensing laws. There was some changes in the last two and a half years, I believe, that allowed municipalities a little more flexibility. I'm not sure. You may be more on top of it than I am, but.
We have extra licenses.
But
Yeah, license.
it's not exactly known for a hotbed of liquor licenses.
John.
So,
Yeah, we have extra licenses. They are not all issued.
so you may, that,
So maybe that's not a barrier, yeah. But what other municipal kinds of things? Or zoning, I mean, an obvious one is the unzoning is.
businesses want to get their permits, get in and get out. They want to know what permits they need from day one. So having a permitting guide can be very helpful. Also having, so that people know who to talk to, what the permit is required. And there's multiple examples. I know Dedham did one, Salem's got a good example of permitting guides. The other piece is part of welcoming a new business is this is what you need to do, A, B, and C will help you, what's the timeline? Because a lot of people, when they're first starting in business, they're not anticipating that it might take 90 days or 6 months to get permits or even longer. So the more you can provide a pathway to certainty, that doesn't mean yes to everything. It means here's the process, what's the criteria, making it very clear. Online applications often make it easier for people. But also sometimes having just like on real estate development, having an orientation meeting for a new business. Here's who you have to talk to. The Board of Health is here. There's, talk to Mark on this thing, talk to this, town administrator on this. There's these boards that meet, at this frequency. Oh, you're in a historic building, you better talk to historic commission. Kind of
I wonder if that's,
getting that clear for people is really important.
I wonder if the chamber has a role in that, because
So I've never gone through the process, but anecdotally, I can tell you Manchester is actually very good. We have businesses that have complained in Essex, for instance, that they don't have that smooth a process. And we tried to, we actually hired a student, high school student for half a year to write policy in Essex, just kind of map out a plan. But Manchester seems to be pretty good. And I think if there were anything, it might be parking limitations that, a lot of people, most of the businesses are grandfathered in right now in terms of parking. So that might be something if a person wanted to open a business and just didn't have the parking, to be a little more lenient than you might be if you had plenty of businesses in town, something like that. But I think the town, it might be because it's so small, but the town hall is great to work with. Our select board, the planning board, there's just the fact that you guys are having this meeting tonight. This is a great town in terms of support for our businesses, I have to say.
I also want to say that, in the business survey that was done during COVID of businesses in Manchester, they surveyed Manchester and Essex. People were much happier in Manchester, business people, with town hall and the support that they received from offices and boards at town hall, reinforcing what Jim just said.
That's something to keep an eye on for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you can always improve on that, but. And that's a real selling point for business recruitment. Because that deters a lot of people.
Okay, I want to get a little bit more granular on the land use. You mentioned for active uses, we haven't resolved the require or allow. But perhaps you require the parking for the residential, but you don't require it for commercial. That might be one incentive at least.
Looking at shared use parking.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I understand that you're interested in going to fall town meeting. And I know parking is always an issue that draws a wide range of opinions and God forbid someone takes away a parking space. So I didn't know if that was gonna be something, but clearly you need to look at the general district and downtown overall. Think, you know, zoning and land use are part of implementation of a plan. So developing that plan and looking more, you know, looking in a more detailed way at parking, you know, as was mentioned, you know, by folks on, virtually, you've had 2 parking studies. It's time to dust them off and reread them and implement some of the recommendations, and shared use parking, I believe, is one of those.
So if we were to implement a land use or zoning, whether it's in November or beyond, do you have a recommendation on the geography of where you would recommend, like physically where this district or overlay district would be?
I would we had a map at the forum where I would include Mosconona Park. I would include the harbor shop area. I would include the town hall area. I would include School Street up to the fire station and Elm Street, you know, on the backside of school. I would go down Central and Washington. I would include Beach Street. I would include Summer Street. To the end where you include the train station.
Even if you were gonna require?
And you require, well, if you're talking about require a special permit, I mean, your concentrated area is really Beach Street and Summer Street for most of your retail businesses. And the harbor shops.
Well, and there's up by town hall too, which is.
And you would keep it just along the streetscape?
I would, what are you asking along the streetscape?
You wouldn't, the district that we would just be focusing right along the street, not deep.
I think in terms of requiring ground floor, have it retailers who face the street.
Yeah.
If they're located at the rear, I'm not clear a rear building or a rear entrance at the back of the building needs to be retail. I think that, you know, I think you could allow that to be residential. But I think it's important to have that transparency, particularly, you know, this is your, you know, here.
Yeah, that's a touch screen, so be careful. But you can point.
I know, but it's really Beach Street from the tracks to Union Street. Summer Street, you know, Summer Street from Beach to Washington. You know, it's really east, yeah, east of the dry cleaners. It's more residential. That's
See if I can do this.
Back off.
Beach Street.
And we're creating a new district essentially here.
Well, I referenced in the detail that I thought Winchester which has a very nice town center, has an interesting approach to their use table, where in their downtown, they have 3 or 4 subzones, and they regulate use by each of the subzones within the downtown. They regulate what's allowed on first floor and what's allowed on upper floors. So it's very clear. It's not just an amorphous mixed-use commercial, where we might assume that the first floor is commercial. Yeah, and it's residential. It's very clear on very specific uses, and that might be something to look at.
So a sub-district of the general district, essentially.
Yeah.
So is this what you're recommending, basically? And then Harbor Point, would we include that? That's going down to Mascanoma, my,
Yeah,
okay, so.
you should certainly.
But I think to Jim's, to the point that 2 of your property owners indicated, that includes much of your area. But you've got residential on the north side of Central that maybe,
Not much here, beyond the,
Well, Union, maybe,
some, but. I mean, could it be written so that if it's existing, that it's a conversion from commercial to residential?
So, and that's where I think people
That's
are
the-
most concerned, is
Right.
the conversion.
Yeah.
But I
I
think,
think it still puts an encumbrance on the property, right? So that's why the realtors, I'm a licensed real estate agent as well. That's why the real estate Association of Realtors is against this as well, because it just puts an encumbrance on it. It's an encumbrance on the building, and it's going to lower the value of those properties in town. And it's not, I mean, it's easy for people who don't own these properties and don't manage what goes into these spaces to say, oh yeah, let's mandate retail on the first level of these spaces. And, it's easy for people to say that. It's not easy to do. It's very challenging. And, I have, it's just, I can give you examples. It's just not easy to do. And quite frankly, if I have to do it and I have empty spaces, I'm going to make up the lost revenue by raising my residential rents and raising rents in other places. That's how I'm going to make it up. I'm not going to lose money. So you have to, we already have a housing shortage. I don't want to say affordable. We have a housing shortage already. I think what you may, yeah. So I still don't think, I think you want to work with the property owners to get these, to keep these spaces retail and restaurants. But I'm not so sure that mandating that is the right thing to do. It's kind of, it's kind of like rent control. Everybody's like, oh, let's enact rent control. But all that does is prevents people from being able to go out and build new units. And so it actually hurts housing.
Sandy has a comment.
I have a question, actually, Kathy, that's to this require or allow situation. And that is, I'm under the impression, and I'd love to understand if it's a correct impression, that businesses are drawn, part of the draw to a downtown area is that there is a certain level of density of businesses, of active businesses. And once you that begins to erode, you're on a perilous path to lots of vacancies. And that seems to me to be one reason to require, at least for a period of time.
yeah, you're going to need to find a workable solution with your business and property owners and the issue of how you retain retail space, because you're right. One of the advantages is right now you have a fairly limited area within Manchester where retail is allowed. So advocate for keeping it very compact and not increasing it. Because so that's one thing. There may be, you may want on the frontage, to have it in kind of the very core area, one way, and then on the edges, have it more discretionary. A special permit could give you that discretion to go either way. There are a lot of vacant, quote, vacant ground level on mixed use buildings. Not in Manchester, you have vacancies. I don't think it's because they're new buildings that have been built for mixed use. And because they have vacant ground floors, because I think your vacancies, see, some of it is because I think people are rehabbing their buildings. Leases expired, some people retired. Some people made through COVID, but then exhaled and said, I'm moving on, but, so I think you've got a variety of reasons. I mean, one table suggested doing exit interviews after businesses leave, which I actually think is a good suggestion, because what you read in the newspaper, what people presume why they left, is not always why they left. And I would also caution that sometimes it's easier for a person to say, oh, that town wasn't supportive, and the story may be totally different. So you may or may not, but I think having that discussion, it's always an opportunity to learn and get better.
Yeah, one point is we go to a lot of destination places, around, I don't even want to call them tourist towns, but little regional places. For example, I was in Rockport last night, or yesterday afternoon, and they have some empty spaces. And I've been going there my whole life. There's always some empty spaces. There's always somebody, there's been a store there for 20 years, now it's gone. There's a building being renovated. There's, somebody, they missed the season, but you can see that maybe they'll be open in August, September. There's always that turnover. And so we have that here now. We may have a few extra spaces, but again, I think as we work through many of these items here, we'll be able to do a better job of bringing people who are either already in the region or coming here for something else to get them to stay for a longer period of time, partially through making it easier for businesses to open, making it easier for people to find parking, whether it's through the map that Jim's working on, whether it's through, I sent Tiffany an outline of visitors page, where we have a lot of information on our websites, and on some other associated websites, but unless you look for it, you don't know where to look. So I've consolidated a list that I'm going to work with Tiffany to at least initially put together on the town website.
Highlighted on the homepage.
Yes, it'll be right on.
Or highlighted on, at each business,
Yeah.
And it'll be something to get going for this year, whether it stays there, whether it's linked to something else, whether it's something that DIP takes on beyond or chamber. But I already talked to Jim about linking his map to the webpage. So I wouldn't be too concerned about having some empty storefronts, because now we're in a position, I think, by having these forums, and I think we've heard that people want more vibrancy and want us to work on what we've been talking about. So
Yeah, I thought the forums were interesting in that they really wanted us to produce retailers. I mean,
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is a concept called economic gardening, where people are really thinking about, you need to grow businesses, not just recruit businesses. And so that pop-ups are one way of doing that. And I mentioned in the detail sheet, you know, town of Ashland actually built a little pop-up area, 300 square feet. And any entity can lease it for a week. So they can try out things, and it also happens to be near where their farmer's market is, so there's activity. But that was a way to kind of help, you know, give people opportunities, you know, whether it's someone who's really kind of an Etsy vendor who does like 1 week, you know, or someone who's seriously interested, or, you know, maybe it's a nonprofit, you know, maybe the Girl Scouts sell cookies for a week, but it's a way to, that's one example. And Lowell, they have a consultant that curates some vacant space. And they've had some success where people, leased it, were a pop up for 2 months that kind of built some business and then leased a nearby store. So, but they're always changing every several months, but that's being curated. But they're also, having some owners give some vacant space so that, or extremely reduced rent. There's also several communities that have done pitch contests for new vendors. So City of Attleboro had a lot of vacancies. They partnered with some of their financial institution partners where they did a pitch contest. They had people from SBA and the financial community and others select the top 3 to 5, business pitches, worked with people, provided technical assistance and some funding, and also then worked with landlords to get some initial rent reduction. They now have, at least 3 new businesses that came as a result of those pitch contests. Of things, there was one business that wanted to do modest women's clothing because they have a large Muslim community. Who would have thought that would have been a business? But it's doing really well. It has lots of customers and has wonderful display windows, Then there was a bubble tea shop. So, sometimes we don't know what people are thinking about, but that can, bring different things. So there's different ways. The tried and true recruitment of people who are experienced and want, are able to open another outlet. That's a very good way. But I would also look at some more other ways, and it's a way, and it keeps things fresh. I appreciate what Jim's saying about how difficult it is to fill retail vacancies. But I think we got to look at creative ways of solving it. I'd also want to say
one of the other things, if I could just jump in quickly, to Tony's point about how did COVID affect us, we really get killed with people learning to shop online. And although people are getting better at that, there's still a lot of people that are on buying this stuff online. They're on doing the Amazon thing. And one of the things that we really haven't talked about here is promoting people to shop local and getting people to come down. And it didn't escape me at that forum. I was at the forum, all these people saying, oh, bring these businesses in and do this and do that. Some of those people I've never seen downtown shopping, reading at the restaurant. And you've got to come down and shop at these shops and patronize these businesses. That's how they're going to survive. And that's what's going to make other businesses come in and set up shop,
So
that's maybe something else we might be able to do is help promote shop local.
I want to talk about Rockport for a second, because Rockport is about the same size as Manchester. It has motif number 1. We've got the Rotunda. It's got 2 little dinky beaches. We've got Singing Beach. We're a half hour closer to Boston. Rockport has got a thriving downtown. And the reason they do is because they've got 10 art galleries. We have 1. on the upstairs, which is a great art gallery, but it's recent. There are a lot of
There's
artists,
another art gallery way in the back of one retail off the
Well,
main street.
and you know, people put up art in their real estate offices and things, but they're not really galleries. But there are a lot of artists living in this town. We don't even have an art association. We don't have a cultural district. We're just
Well, you
lagging.
know, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah, but people can paint in a day.
That's Chris, and I have to agree with the shop local a lot, but I think that's part of promotion and marketing. But I tried to identify some early action steps that are building blocks. And yes, a cultural district, you've got library, you've got the museum. Get your artists involved, do your art week again. It's a building process. You guys have been focused on policy and you gotta implement. And so,
Are there carrots that people, mandates versus carrots? Are there carrots that people have in zoning laws to encourage mixed use?
the typical carrot is sometimes if you do this, we'll give you a little high, we'll let you go up another story and get more residential units. So that, but you gotta.
No.
There's trade-off, it's like. That is a frequent, on new, on new development and some, rehab. Adding additional density, whether that's because you've got, whether it's through height or increased, lot coverage. Or enhanced FAR. So there's a couple ways to do that, but that is one, I can't, are you in the Cape Ann economic target area?
Sure.
The Commonwealth has an economic development incentive program. And I know there's a Cape Ann target area, but I can't remember if Manchester's part of it or not. I know Gloucester is an economic target area community. And it might be worth exploring joining that target area if you're not. But that does enable you to give some financial incentives on new investment. In terms of a reduction in real estate taxes. So you can do what they call either a special tax assessment, which is a 5-year phase in of real estate taxes. But it zeroes out the first year. Or you can do what they call district improvement, tax increment financing, which in Massachusetts is different than any other state, but it's a tax incentive rather than, and so on the incremental new taxes, if you're doing a real estate project, if you're in an economic target area and the municipality approves, as well as the State Economic Assistance Coordinating Council, you can sometimes give a reduction in real estate taxes and have a tax agreement for a minimum of 5 years, a maximum of 20 years. But that does not change the existing assessment. It only deals with the incremental new real estate taxes. So those are your kind of two major ways of doing it. Some towns waive some permit fees. But permit fees often go to pay staff who are doing the regulating, the administering, so. And I have not looked at your permit fees to see if they seem out of line. I haven't heard anything negative about it.
I think they're below market rate, which is probably
Yeah.
why we get such a great review from.
That affects the general fund, so I mean, sometimes it's worth doing, but the easiest way is to kind of help get businesses in business and support and help with the promotion and marketing and drawing it, but also augmenting that cultural activity piece. Because that will draw people, that's an active use.
All right,
And
I think
churches are also spaces that can be used for public events. West Concord, most of the churches on the evenings and weekends are used as cultural space in addition to worship service.
All right, well, I think you've given us a ton to think about. And are there any more immediate questions for Kathy? We know where to find her. We may.
I just have
yeah.
one question, Kevin.
Howard, you've been so quiet.
It's sort of something I've actually seen in the presentation. I missed the last one. So you do have invested in streetscape and walkability enhancement throughout downtown. I think that's something that downtown improvement it's addressed some years ago and will continue to address it as we are closer. Have you looked at the downtown and thought of any redevelopment of existing spaces that would help enhance the downtown?
I think the building on School Street next to, next to the vacant lot between the fire, across from the fire department. I mean, that's a larger, that's one of your larger spaces.
Yeah.
Vacant
for where craft
some
was.
mentioned childcare, one or both could be there. That also looks out on, that whole area to me could be a really interesting.
There's other
Thank you,
spots going in the downtown area that are deserving.
Yeah, that's kind of not in your kind of core downtown area, but it's in your downtown, so that seems like it has a lot of.
And there's other spots though that are definitely in the downtown lower down low, I'll call it lower versus up
Yeah.
here. That could use a little sprucing up, if not completely redevelopment.
Like the gas.
Would that help?
Yeah.
That help benefit the downtown?
Yeah, I mean, that has room for some, you could do some kind of, bait effort on volunteers to kind of spruce that area up as well. Because
I had
an
a more, I had a
interesting
more,
area.
I had a more larger approach.
But go back to the Hooper building, the craft building.
Building.
If you had retail only to 30 feet. And then you had, just like they're doing at 7 Central, a residential unit behind the retail.
Yeah, and
It's-
above.
I mean, it's a 3-story building, right, with residential above, mixed use, but keeping that seems to me a really good, as opposed to a large vacant commercial.
Right.
And it has a loading dock down below. It has parking, whether you like how it looks or not is another, but it has parking, it has a streetscape. And it's large, and it has a view.
The rears are interesting, could be opened up,
Yeah.
in that area.
So.
That could be a different, but that's another project, so you've got a lot of basic steps that I think you need to work on, I think, getting mixed use as an allowed use, I think you need to have a discussion on, people have mentioned breweries, do you want a brewery? It's not allowed right now. It's not,
We don't allow hotels or inns.
yeah, a lot of people mentioned inns, School Street might be a location for an inn.
That would be great.
Hotels are interesting too in their, the overlap with the short-term rental issues. So a lot of the times, the lack of having hotel or inn,
Drives the short term.
it drives the short-term rental industry.
Yeah, one of the things we might consider is allowing short-term rental in ADUs in the downtown. Not in the neighborhoods, of course, but. in the downtown.
neighborhood.
Yeah, that's the thing, it is.
Yeah, but there are people drinking and partying all over the downtown, theoretically.
Until 9 o'clock.
Well,
Right.
these you gotta talk through and they're not gonna be resolved in one night, but I did wanna try and get that, short-term action plan and give you a list of things that you need to identify, who's gonna work on it, who's gonna, who's the convening entity for some of this. And then I'd review it at least on a quarterly basis, even perhaps even a month, so it's like things don't fall down.
Okay, thank you very much. They've given us a lot to think about. November is chasing right up on
So
here very quickly.
it would be to keep it simpler for November, and then have a larger discussion on some of the things that might be a little need more airing.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, great. I think we will continue. Thank you, Steve, for coming. Tony, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. John, thank you for coming, and everybody online for Jim in particular, but others, please feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting. We don't have too much additional business, but
This portion.
this portion is, I think, unless, I think we're probably kind of enough for tonight on this. You may.
Thank you, and I'll email them.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kathy.
We, next item is just, is there a quick, update on the driveway, what you've done on driveways?
So, I met with the, Public Works and the fire department, and went over the driveway bylaw and the regulations. And so, after reviewing it, what I've done is I've moved I have a draft. I want to review it with them one more time, the regulation portion of it. Because what I've done is I've moved if you had regulations on width and how far from certain things in the bylaw as well as in the regulation. So the bylaw should state what your goals and the purpose of everything. You've already authorized the planning board to draft the regulation. So all the technical aspects should be in the regulation. So I've done that, and so I just need to re-review it with the police and fire chief, and not the police, so the fire chief and the public works. And I will send out a draft for the next meeting.
Okay, great. The next item is just a follow-up on Chris's thought piece that he did on senior housing. To just, we're not really gonna delve into senior housing tonight, but do you want to just tell folks what your purpose was in both their little topics? And because of open meeting law, we can't like debate them except in open meetings. So I know you've thought a lot about senior housing and.
Yeah, I have thought about senior housing, and we've actually put two drafts of actual bylaws together, which are at the end of the piece. What I want people to think about is the broad range of different kinds of senior housing. It's not just, for example, Brooksby Village. They can be very small, they can be very large. Probably what we're looking for in Manchester is much smaller ones. Or at least that's because the lots are also small. So we're not going to see, 80 unit complexes being proposed. So I just wanted to give you all a sense of what these things are, and whether we should include all of them or some of them, whether we want to have minimum lot sizes or not, whether we want to encourage reuse of existing buildings. These are all things that we're going to have to talk through. At the very end, you'll see the actual wording of bylaws that we've discussed and actually approved, but never got taken up by town meeting.
Why was that? Right after putting all that work into it, like, you ran out of time in that one town meeting, but.
That was why.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
why.
yeah. So you just didn't have the opportunity to bring it.
There were a bunch of things that we wanted to bring, which never happened.
Yeah.
Seems like the perfect.
But we are gonna pursue them now, correct?
Well,
Well,
that's
that's
what we
what
said,
we have to
we
decide.
said they were among our priorities. Whether we get to them in
Yeah.
November is to be, but certainly I think we said we were gonna try to make that downtown and senior housing as our priorities for this year.
Yeah.
So, so I think Chris did a great job of saying where we are. So everybody should read it carefully and, we
Yeah,
will
this-
have a discussion very soon about,
And either we mark up the, potentially the language of the existing bylaws that we've drafted, or you say, let's start all over.
I'm gonna act stupid here. Do I know where those are? Did I-
on the share, on the meeting folder.
Oh, it's on the meeting.
Can you
sorry.
access that now? Sure.
I don't know. I just.
All right, I'm gonna send you a link and if you
Yeah,
can't
please
access
do.
it, yeah. Okay.
It's in the
Yeah.
document you sent though, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
sent it to you.
But I'll make sure, if you don't have access to the meeting folder
Yeah.
yet, we need to make sure you get
Yeah.
there. Okay, do you have access to the meeting?
I do, I have all
You're on
kinds
it.
of
All right.
access. Limited access.
This like
I read it all. I read it all.
This link that I'm gonna send you before I'll send it before I leave here.
Okay.
Bookmark it,
Wait
that's,
till you see it.
okay, we said we would do liaison updates, so I know you're the Concom person and.
Mark, I
but-
talked, I'm gonna let Mark
Okay,
do it.
so I said to Mark, you can just give us a quick update on what the Concom does and what the Open Space Committee does. So, and what's what's their,
So, they, at their last meeting, they reviewed Reed Park and they closed the hearing on Reed Park. They also approved, the culvert replacement project, the notice of intent for that, as well as for the retaining wall replacement for further upstream, going back all the way past the fire station. They, also received a similar presentation from Public Works and I believe it's Weston and Sampson about Sweeney Park. Because as you saw from their presentation, some of the existing field is, a portion is in formal wetlands. So the commission agreed kind of, and that's what they were seeking was some guidance, you know, whether they would be in favor of allowing the renovation of that field. And so it seems like they gave a positive response. I mean, it's not approval or anything, but they gave a positive response. They'd be open to doing so. So they're gonna, I believe, continue the Parks Department with developing the plans, very similar to what you've seen. And then they talked a little bit about access to Western Woods. That is something that is also being discussed by the next group that I'm going to talk about. But there was some funding set aside to the Conservation Commission for a Western Woods project.
does everybody know where the Western Woods are?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
West of Pine.
west, yeah.
Yeah, West of Pine.
West of Pine,
Yes.
Beverly side of Pine and this side of 128.
That's. And so, so that whole area is.
You need to explain what the issue is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's several issues there. One is ownership. More than 50% of the properties are publicly owned or owned by the Manchester Essex Conservation Trust. So it's either town-owned or trust land. I believe that's pretty much it. They are continuing to, not all of the town land is under the control of the Conservation Commission. Much of those properties are under the control of the select board. That is something that, you know, at some point will probably be discussed about whether they should be should be preserved. One of the bigger issues is also the assessor's office is trying to map where these are because they're not correct. There are tax maps. I talked to a lady just last week who came in has a parcel and it's not shown on the assessor's map. And they know she has a parcel and they're billing her, but they don't know exactly where it is.
Mark,
It's very much, so don't feel too bad.
how big is the whole area, acreage?
What is, It's
500?
It's a big area.
Yeah,
Is that behind Brookwood? You know, have you ever
Oh,
gone on
right,
those
right.
trails up in there?
got lost back there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they get lost back there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes all the way to the Beverly border.
Yeah, so I know the Manchester Essex Conservation Trust, it was discussed at one of the meetings, is also beginning to actively pursue additional acquisitions and engage with various people. Those won't be announced until anything's actually transferred. But as part of that, so the assessor's office has some CPC monies to try and straighten out some of these ownership issues. They've been working on that, you know, a little bit at a time over the last few years. The Conservation Commission has some money for some sort of management, and and it was a kind of a vaguely written application several years ago. And so they feel that their big issue is the public access. There's one main public access point from the Beverly side, and there's one from the Manchester side, which is at the end of Crooked Lane. There's parking for a couple cars. It's not owned, I believe it's owned by Manchester Essex Trust. And then kind of it crosses different town and trust ownerships as it goes, the trail goes into the woods. So they've been out looking at a couple other locations. There's one closer to the highway, actually directly opposite the off-ramp from the southbound side. It is kind of steep, but does access, it is town land at the bottom. So you could improve it with some parking spaces, improve a trail. It is steep, but once you get in there, apparently it connects to the whole trail network in that area. So that's one location that they're looking at, and so that's kind of the conservation.
So their goal is just to make it more accessible, is that what?
Yeah, their goal is to make
Yeah.
it more accessible, easier for people to use the trails. I believe Manchester Essex Trust is looking at trying to better mark the existing trails. They do have a nice map on their website. Again, that's something that should be linked to our town thing. So I'm working on that as well. So that kind of goes into the Open Space Committee as well, where they've talked about access and trail accesses. One of the other thing the Open Space Committee has been working on is better parking for Powder House Reservation. Traditionally, people have parked behind the Housing Authority building. There's a long row of parking, and for whatever reason, the Housing Authority started objecting to that. So some CPC funds were appropriated. We've had the property surveyed. It was discovered that some of the buildings encroach on the town right away. So we're in the process of working something out. We've designed 3 parking spaces that
They're marked, right?
That we would build in exchange, give for an easement for 3 others that are closest to the entrance to be used for trail access. We would build these additional 3 spaces for them, so there's no loss of spaces. So that's what we're working on. I'm waiting to apparently a new exec director for the Housing Authority was supposed to have started July 1st. I don't know if that person did or not. I've left a couple messages, so waiting to hear back.
Mark, there are 3 entrances to Powder House Hill Reservation on Pine Street. Is on-street parking permitted along Pine in those areas?
I don't believe there's on-street parking. I think it's
But closer to, the gas station there is parking. But you have to walk,
Yeah, well, okay.
that also.
and also access behind Scout House.
And off Elm Street too.
Right,
Everywhere.
right.
Get in there. Is the The open space and recreation, that's an appointed position, or is that, it's not elected, right?
We're the only us and the select
Right,
board,
okay,
the only ones who have the privilege of.
yeah. Campaigning.
And then, speaking of Powder House, the Bike and Ped Committee has been working with a trail constructing group to put together a plan to create won't be able to make it a fully accessible trail, but it'll be in what's called all access trail in Powder House. So from behind the Housing Authority, you would go into where there's some benches, and then they would go up the grade toward the water tower, like, come back, and go up, and then there's a steeper section, and they would go around where there was an old road, and that would get cleared, regraded, and then it would
That's right
come
down
all the
Elm
way
Street.
down to where there's the furthest or the closest to downtown Pine Street access, which that's steep when it goes by somebody's house, and it actually, I believe, encroaches a little bit on his property. So we would cut a new trail going toward there's a bench,
Yeah.
get away from downtown and cut a new trail across. And so that would be, all the grading would be maximum, I think it has to be 5%, not more than, to be considered an all trail. So they might put in like handrail for some of the steepest where it exceeds like 3% or something. So,
Nice.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
so that's something that's a
Great
working on
resource.
as well, which is related to these other two things.
Okay, great.
There you go.
What we do is we have a liaison to different groups, and we're just getting updates. I was gonna ask next time if you can do if the facilities has met, but if not, the Essex
So it's
Elementary.
supposed to be meeting next week.
Okay, facilities, and if you have a chance to do historic, just. If you have time,
I will
just check
do
in
it.
with
Do
Rosemary.
historic.
I would do it.
Okay, so next time. Since Tony's come back, I thought maybe we should just spend maybe just 5 or 10 minutes talking about next steps on downtown zoning. I think Mark and I talked before the meeting whether or not we might want to have Kathy help us to craft a zoning article, given that time is short and Mark has a lot on his plate. We have some money that we could apply to that.
Yeah, so we have money that we can apply to using Kathy or another consultant to put something together. What I'm thinking may not be quite as complicated as we need to hire a consultant to do that. There may be some additional other things we may want to have done. But I mean, I'm thinking, what we would do is create a limited downtown district, not an overlay district, actual district. Because if you change, so that way you can change the rules specifically for this district, doesn't affect any of the other general district. Remember, the downtown's only 20% of the greater general district. So, so you start changing rules, it might affect certain things outside of the downtown. So we pretty much know what the limits of downtown are, right? And if people want to come to the planning board and in the future and go, I was left out and I'd like to be the next house up on Summer Street, let's say we stop.
If you put retail on the first floor, sure.
Remember, most of the abutting properties all around are they're they're residential, but they're also in the general district.
Yeah.
So if we go from, let's say, Bluebird to Union Street to down Beach, like we were talking about.
Yes.
If somebody else is in the general district and we're successful in creating a more vibrant and they would like to ask to be included in the future, making changes. I mean, a zoning document's supposed to be fluid, right? So So it's not a bad thing. So, and my thought is that the way this new district would work, it would just, well, we wouldn't create a whole new set of rules and regulations for this district. We would work within the existing framework. So we have a use chart. Just be another column in the use chart. We have dimensional tables, it'd be another column in the dimensional table. We would try not, we have a parking standards, you know, maybe we have to create some exemptions, like we said, for commercial in this district, so we can apply it just to this district and not to the rest of the general district. Other,
So
yeah.
are you thinking about the idea she was talking about that Winchester uses a sub-district of the general district?
No.
No,
This would
so
be its own.
district with its own whole new set of
Own
rules.
set of rules. I don't see an advantage to creating overlays or sub-districts or anything else. Yeah, I think your downtown is unique enough. It ought to be its own standalone district.
The only question would be this sort of procedurally, just is the assessor, does that, you know, is there a administrative reason to make it an overlay? Just, you know, you might check with her. I don't know.
Sarah, I just have a question. If we we're gonna have the consultant help us, I don't know if we answered that or
Yeah,
not.
that we didn't answer
Like
that.
so would that mean that we're gonna set what the design criteria is within that overlay district, correct?
We
So
didn't talk
that
about,
would be a topic for
When I
discussion.
say design criteria, I mean, not in terms of aesthetic design, but
You're talking about site plan review.
talk about site plan review, about what is actually allowed within that area. Where it is.
there's uses. What's
Uses
allowed,
is
what
clearly-
uses are allowed.
And dimensions.
There's dimensions, how high, how much setback.
Right.
There's parking. We could have, design review. You have to have window boxes or, you know, but I worry that if you burden it, my opinion would be if you burden it too much.
I hate to hear, I hate to hear you guys talk about regulations. Let me tell you something. You're gonna kill the downtown area.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it was funny listening to the beginning of this meeting, and now it sounds like you guys are on board and pushing forward with this mandated business downstairs. As far as usages go, for those of you.
No.
No, well, I know you, so let me just finish my thought. As far as uses go, what are your thoughts right now on what do you think is appropriate for first level uses?
I don't think we've made it.
Just what's on your mind right now?
I don't think we.
I don't think we've made a decision. I think,
Yeah, I think, Jim, what we would do is I would put, you know, a proposal together based on our existing zoning and our existing use chart for the new district.
Would you
And-
propose all just retail only? Or would you
No,
propose
no, we
retail
would
and
go
food?
through, Jim, we would go through our existing use chart. And
Yeah.
we would say in this new district, you know, let's say we have something for retail, we would say, yes,
Yes,
it's permitted, or
yeah.
P is permitted. You know, something like someone mentioned, childcare.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a special permit, right?
Yeah.
You know,
So for downtown, retail, check mark, financial business, check mark?
I don't know if it's separately
Real
defined.
estate,
Banks.
check mark?
We would have,
so let's not try to get into the weeds on this now. All we want to try to do is say, do we want to move forward to have continued discussion? I
Yes,
think
yes.
there's consensus
Yeah.
that we want to move forward to have continued consensus. And I think that that we're responding to is we are worried about wholesale conversions to just residential. That's the concern. And right now, the cargo applicants said that they couldn't, that mixed use is not allowed. I think that is actually even debatable when you read the zoning, but nonetheless. So I think the issue is not to try to make a decision tonight on any aspect of this, but to ask, do we want to move forward, whether it's Mark or Mark and Kathy to to start to hammer out what these things would look like. And certainly we will have public hearings and we will have in more meetings with input, and we certainly have heard the concern about the tension between mandate versus allow. So I think that's.
I would suggest maybe you limit residential, maybe instead of mandating retail or business. I mean, what you don't want to see is all real estate offices. You don't want to see all financial offices down there. I could fill that whole downtown area up with real estate offices. Churchill calls me all the time, but I don't do that. But maybe what you do is you say, okay, residential by special permit or variance, right? And now there you go. You've nipped that right away, you know, instead of restricting it across the board. And then you have the opportunity, if it makes sense to do residential in a certain spot.
Well, I think you could say residential is allowed on upper floors by right, but you need a special permit on the first floor.
Yeah, or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Just be
Okay, so those are
open-minded,
good-
that's all
good
I'm
thoughts.
saying. I'm just saying, be open-minded because
It's trying to
you guys, you never know, whenever you see regulation be put in and zoning and more laws, you really can never think through everything that's gonna be impacted by those. And so
All right, so
you wanna be very, very careful.
Help me understand as the new person here. What we're trying to do, if I understand correctly, is to remedy a deficiency in the existing zoning. I mean, that's.
And
would you-
present it to town meeting to
Right.
see if the voters.
Because
agree.
mixed use is not exactly allowed as a for instance.
Yeah, Tony, sorry.
Well, just given that Friday is August 1st, could the planning board talk at the next meeting, really look at the calendar and, you know, for me, I really wanna have a good understanding of a schedule, if we're gonna have town meeting in the fall, when that plan would be, and, you know, realistically, like, if you think it's something that can be accomplished, you know, I think, you know, July went by like this, June went by like that.
Yeah, and understood, yeah, for sure. Whether it's, I mean, I think we can get something for November town meeting. But we have to spend a bunch of time talking about it. Whether or not we should is, we need to decide.
Right.
So, and the other thing is if there are other issues that need a November town meeting, so we'll, assume.
So I wanna understand where we are procedurally.
Yeah.
Because, and I may be completely misreading, but what I'm hearing is that you have already decided things that maybe I haven't decided yet.
Yes.
Substantive issues that will be in the zoning.
That's my job, is to
But-
recommend things to you
As
and
long
then you
as-
decide.
But as long as we still have an opportunity.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what, the other thing is I would like to have Kathy to bounce idea, to be able to use Kathy to, if I need her to write certain things, to review what I draft, to bounce ideas off. So I would like to continue, since she's been involved, to continue to use her.
It seems to me before we write anything, we need to write down the actual issues of what exactly is this district, what exactly would be allowed, go through our existing use table and then add other uses and say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, special permit. Go right through them, and dimensional requirements and parking seem like the big ones. And just march ourselves through those, and maybe we could have Kathy online to
I think
help.
the boundaries of the district are gonna be.
Is not, yeah, not trivial.
So I prepared map before, I will resend it, maybe I'll tweak it a little bit. And I can send that, and we can have that as a basis
I
for
think it needs to be a parcel
discussion.
map.
Yeah, it was a parcel map that I had drawn a boundary around. But what we can do is we can use that kind of as a basis for discussion. It's basically what we already talked about. And, you know, and then we can kind of another two
Yeah,
properties
right.
this way, one back behind there, not that one, whatever. If we
But then I
do
think,
that. And then the other thing I will do is for the charts, I will add, create, I won't include all the other districts, but I'll put all the uses on one and put what I recommend, and then another blank column, and you guys can fill in what you want, and then we can talk about this as well.
it's like a good start.
And that way, I think that's an easier way than trying to reinvent a whole district with a whole new set of rules, is to use our existing.
Yes, our existing template.
Is this a workshop type forum you're
Well, I
talking
think
about?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Or is
It
open
it has to be a
to-
meeting, I mean.
yes, it would be an open.
From a starting point that Mark and Kathy to develop.
Yeah, and then we see how close we are to consensus.
Yeah.
And where we have disagreement and where we need public input, maybe we have a forum right early in September to get input on that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But once we have a framework, then we decide. Okay, that seems like a good way to go. Okay, great. Let's have a update on CST.
So
Oh, one more.
could you make a motion to allow me to continue to use Kathy to assist in preparing that if necessary for the 11th?
Yeah, we don't have a budget from her. Is she an hourly? Is how
Yeah,
is she
we
budgeting?
do have that, we do have hourly budget rate, and her contract was extended.
So is there a upset value that number $2,000, $5,000?
So her current contract is, there's about $2,000 to $3,000 left. So what I did is I encumbered what was left of last year's funding for consultant services. And so she did an amended contract not to exceed that amount.
So can I just
What
maybe
would that
ask,
amount be?
I don't know, have a bill yet for what tonight's would be.
so maybe what we can do is make a motion to extend Kathy's contract up to $2,000 pending a review of her current status on the budget, against our budget and her bills with either Sue or me. I'm gonna be away, so one of us meet with Mark and just sort of say, okay, we have the money, we're not,
Sure,
if that's okay, and then with the authority to go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
And
I'll second
pending that review. Any other discussion? All in favor?
it. Her services are effectively complete now. as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I think this is her final report, so. Okay, we should just look at her contract, her scope of work, make sure she's delivered what she needs to, and that, okay, thank you.
Do we have since you'll be away,
We'll talk about,
okay, because I don't think I have, copy. Maybe I do.
I think
but
we had it in the beginning,
all
yeah,
right.
but
Sure, I
let's
can
mark
send it
us.
to you.
Okay,
And then there was an addendum that we entered into at the end of the
Okay.
year to just encumber that end of year money.
okay.
Okay, CST, you guys went out there.
Excellent meeting. Yeah, Mark and I went out there for a walkthrough, actually to check and see if they were complying with the special permit requirements, which Mark can give you an update. He went through all the points at the end. But they gave us a tour of the entire site to give us a status of what it looks like. And as I anticipated, since they were so good in the beginning about covering all the bases and making sure they did everything correctly, they are doing everything correctly. So it's really quite good. Right now, it's that rock face has been blasted back where they can get some put rock anchors and sturdy it up. This is where the building cascades down onto the lower level. They're gonna have exposed rock between between the parking garage to phase 1 and phase 2. They're just doing everything right. This year is all site civil engineering, burying the drainage, getting all that. The wells are already in for the geothermal. The building drainage ditches and the collection basins and that stuff. It's really quite impressive to see a contractor do it so well. And the contractor Columbia has, their project manager's got everything under control. They're doing everything by what the owner wants, but also by good engineering and good construction practices. So I was very impressed.
And you said that they wanted to make one change to the plan, and do a dry.
Right,
Yeah.
so they had planned on doing a wet basin with like a plastic liner underneath or retain water. They've chosen to change it to a dry basin, which only fill up during major rain events. That's been reviewed by our engineer,
So give them the reason why they're making that change.
the reason why is the owner would rather not look at it.
Yeah, the owner doesn't want to see a wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, you know, and just dry.
And
So that you've had Weston and Sampson review that.
Yeah.
Mark and I talked about it. It seemed like it was an administrative change. We did not need to reopen a hearing for
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't involve us at all.
So, and how about their website and the weekly or bi-weekly or monthly look ahead, whatever those were gonna be?
I didn't look, they said they do have the website up. I haven't looked at it.
There's a couple things that they were delinquent on that
Yes.
Mark made them aware they were delinquent on, and they would say they would follow through and
Okay,
give us an update as to where status is.
all right. I think we really want to make sure that they're, because that's the public facing
Right.
piece, and that also that DPW should know, and the town administrator and Mark should know whatever we ask for, 2-week or month look ahead,
Yeah.
what they're gonna be
So
doing.
they are in communication with Public Works because they've been about
Yeah,
dealing
that's
with
fine.
utilities, Atwater Ave design, traffic count, all those types of things. So they're in constant communication.
But the website,
I,
do you know what it's called?
If you can get that out to
Yeah,
all of us,
yeah,
that would be helpful.
That'd be
I'll
great.
send that out too.
And that should go a link on our website on
Yes.
the CST
Yeah.
projects. Okay, great.
You know, that just makes me think that they were out of compliance on a couple of things, and we're talking about the process. And they're so buttoned up, and they, you know, it seems like they really were genuine when they were saying what they were gonna do. But you think about some of these other projects that we've approved, you monitoring the making sure that they're doing what they were asked to do.
I think the intent is we will follow up on those major projects to be just as a little check-in.
Yeah.
I felt that these guys were great. They gave us a tour, told us everything about everything, everywhere, what's happening now, future, and so
I know, but still.
They certainly will
Yeah.
comply.
Yeah.
If you, I don't think you are, Peter, but they're not, they will do what they said. they
Oh,
would
I
do.
know.
Peter, are you saying we should do more of that for other
Yeah,
projects?
yeah,
Yes.
which we've talked about.
It's
Yeah,
a
we
simple,
need
it's
to-
a simple hour's visit and just a little
Right.
walk around. You can see it.
Well worth it.
Yeah, it's really well worth it.
Well, Cornerstone Church is on my list because they are more than 2 years.
That was before I even,
Yeah,
What was the deal?
even an idea in my head.
yeah.
That happened.
So,
happening?
anyway, we don't have to get into, but that's on my checklist, so. All right, Tony, you have anything, questions for us or feedback or,
No, I thought Kathy was really informative.
yeah, she knows a lot.
You know, I think that, obviously, a lot of the stuff that she talked about goes beyond just zoning.
Oh, yeah.
Planning board, so that's where.
Her handout, right? Did you get it?
I didn't, but she said she was gonna email
Yeah,
it to
You
me.
got one?
I'll grab
Okay.
it.
I have another one too.
Yeah, so it goes beyond just like the planning board, a lot of the stuff she talked about, and that the downtown improvement.
Yeah, lots to think
You know,
about.
tip, the committee, you know, really helped out with that. It's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to do a lot in the hot, but it's exciting and interesting for me.
Yeah,
But I thought she was great. I chatted with her out in the hallway for a minute.
yeah, she's great.
Very knowledgeable.
She knows so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Very
I
knowledgeable.
was eager I asked that question because about post-COVID
Mhm.
adjustment, because I was eager to hear what she had to say. It was pretty interesting, her response on some of those,
Mhm.
how things have changed.
Great, well, thank you for coming, and you're always welcome at our meetings. Greg often he attended many of our meetings, but please feel free to do it on one day.
I was.
Yeah.
Here anyway.
Yeah, I know, murder meeting, but,
Following you around.
but we also let you know if we have something that's. But you're always welcome. Okay, minutes, we have, May 12th.
I had a couple of changes on that one.
That one had a lot, I think that was the AI generated one.
Oh, really?
I think that's why it was, hard, I thought it needed an edit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And some stuff shouldn't be in there.
right, because it was the AI, I think you need. to
So,
take a look.
Is this-
what's
this
the?
one?
May 12th.
I doesn't
Bit
know how
around
to get
on
a chance to look.
After AI.
Okay, I'll.
And
read-
it's like
I'll-
missing.
Good thing
some
it's like
sentences are
sentences are
missing
not
things,
complete.
And also, it's a little argumentative rather than.
Right, it's
just
like-
what
right.
happened.
Yeah, I
I
have
know
the same
what
reaction
AI
to that one.
argument.
How about May 27th?
I wasn't there that day, so.
Okay, May 27th, does anybody?
They seem
They're
fine.
fine, and so were you there for that one? When was the election?
It was right after the
It
election.
was right after the
Yeah,
election.
that's
It's
what
not your
everybody,
first
it
meeting.
was their first meeting.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to move to approve the May 27th meeting. Chris, I think I just heard you move that.
Yeah.
And Peter has seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are actually very. Okay, 6:23. That one, that was the meeting and that was our retreat.
Short and sweet, man.
Short.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll take a motion to move, second. All in favor? Okay. And then 7:14, the only amendments I had there is that I was gonna do the electric. The liaison to the regional electric capacity question, and I was gonna do the climate resilience, which didn't get onto the list. So that was amendments to the 7:14. But other than that, I thought it was
Yeah.
fine. Okay, so moved, Sue, Peter moved and Sue seconded. All in favor? Okay. Public comment. We had a notice from Essex and we had, this morning, we received an email from Tim and Katarina Gates, which I forwarded to you. It went to many people. I think it's a building inspector question.
Wow.
So, yeah, but it did come in. Any other, I didn't see any other, emails, came in, so. Any other public comment that we haven't gotten to tonight? Great. The next meeting is currently scheduled for August 11th. And, I'm gonna be virtual. But I think we can
Not
continue to meet.
Be absent.
Yeah.
So
I know.
that's our current laid plan next meeting, so do be a little, because of all the other things we've got going on,
So
stay tuned.
what happened with the light summer schedule?
I know, well, hopefully we won't meet the last meeting in
Yeah,
August.
it's just as light as.
We'll
last
hopefully
summer.
meet on the 11th, but not.
But
not
after last summer.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
That's the goal,
And can I
So-
or we might have a working
We,
group. to
we may
solve it.
have to figure out like.
Yeah.
Before September to have another one. I
Yeah.
don't think I can.
Yeah.
Be at whatever our normal second one is.
Okay, all right, well, we'll stay tuned on that. I'll try to firm that up. Any other?
Just a quick question about the alternate planning board members?
Oh,
Did-
Yes, that's on my list.
Oh,
Great.
okay.
Hey, what's your question? Are we gonna do them?
Yeah.
Yes, we've had one person already express interest. We're waiting for the AG to
Yes.
approve this.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's what we're waiting for.
Okay, I didn't realize that, okay.
Oh, and any update on MBTA zoning approval?
Yeah.
Same thing.
I just checked today.
Yep. No.
So we did meet with Tony and ask that it go on the agenda for the Bruce Lar meeting.
We're gonna try and bring our legislators in
Yeah.
on this, cause it's just.
Yeah, so.
No one listens to us, right?
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Thank you.
I thought that was gonna be a short.
You know, it's gonna be short.
So
Yeah.
there's